Welcome to class this week. We are going to be looking at the untethered adult. So, let's get started. Hacker hotels and micro lives. The untethered adult. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one. Those are the lyrics from John Lennon from Imagine, but they almost fit this new sharing society and sharing economy that's coming out as a result of the untethered society. Silicon Valley, the hacker hotel. Post-World War II, most Americans reached adulthood in their teens or early 20s. Today, millennials are taking much longer to reach adulthood, if they reach it at all. The General Social Survey, a large-scale survey conducted every 2 years by the National Opinion Research Center, has defined adulthood by the achievement of 5 major transitions. These are 1. Leaving home. 2. Finishing school. 3. Becoming financially independent. 4. Getting married and having a child. Americans in the past have largely considered attaining these goals as having attained the American dream, and a majority achieve them by age 32. Now, millennials are unhooking from this dream altogether. Take Ryan, for example. Though barely 30, he could easily pass for 17. At our last meeting at a restaurant in Portland, the waitress refused to serve him alcohol after he'd forgotten his ID in his hotel room. Sandy-haired and bespectacled, Ryan cuts a slightly rumpled figure in an oversized suit, which hangs a bit awkwardly from his rail-thin frame, giving the appearance of a boy in his father's clothing. Fast thinking and fast talking and incessantly checking his phone, Ryan lives with 40 other men in their 20s and a handful of women in a, quote, hacker hotel in San Francisco called 20 Mission, which is a glorified frat house in a way for techies. Others like it have sprung up in Brooklyn and Medellin, Colombia, and even a catamaran traversing the world called Cowboat, which describes the typical workday as, quote, you wake up to the rocking of the ship, then grab a delicious breakfast in the sun before launching into the day's work. Meetings and brainstorming are interrupted only by diving and sunbathing, and you watch the sunset over drinks with your fellow coworkers, close quote. Life is just one big vacation. Over in the Bay Area, life is one big frat party, if the frat were for engineers. Their promotional video shows a variety of computer nerd types at a party attended by a small handful of girls. Let's take a look at that video real quick.
Fuck off business.
Twenty Mission brands itself as a creative space for entrepreneurial activities, touting daily contact with, quote, engineers, graphic designers, photographers, videographers, brand consultants, and well-connected Silicon Valley entrepreneurs. With this, and the combination of high-speed internet, potential residents are told they'll have, quote, every resource at their fingertips, close quote.
Behind a nondescript door in San Francisco's Mission District lies a refuge for artists, entrepreneurs, and anyone who needs a place to stay on a budget. 20 Mission accepts Bitcoin for rent and also at an affiliated store called Nakamoto's.
I just bought this super amazing sweatshirt that I'm going to pay for with Bitcoin. Done. Amazing.
Welcome to 20 Mission. We have 40 people living here. It's community living. We have a community kitchen, and we have some really phenomenal artwork. Snowflakes left over from the snowflake party. You should Google that one.
So I like these cryptocurrency sort of
yeah.
street names. That's pretty awesome. Timmy. Hacker Cat. So are you guys like working right now? Are you on the clock or?
No, not really. We just mess around in our spare time on development stuff. There's some plants here. People do a little farming. They haven't gotten much water recently because, Burning Man, so they're a bit underwatered at the moment.
Yeah, they do. Look a little peaked.
Okay, can you guess what this used to be? Just take a wild guess.
The chair in the sort of.
Yeah, blanket.
Man, I don't know. It doesn't look very good. I gotta say.
We didn't lock anyone in there.
It definitely looks like.
We didn't lock any human in there. I'll put it that way.
Okay, dog run, I guess then?
No dogs. It's a chicken coop.
A chicken coop?
Yeah, the city of San Francisco forced them to shut it down. But apparently they got some good chickens out of it.
I am Benji. I moved here when this place started and built my own room. Been doing different things with it, mainly glowy shit. I run this website, glowishit.com. This is pretty cool. It's like $25, but you do all these colors and stuff.
Oh, that's cool. I also like things that light up. I find that exciting.
My name is Jordan. I've been here for a month and a half. I've been in San Francisco for 2.5 months. We're building a sports app, and NFL starts in 4 days. So we're really on a crunch to try and get our bid out before the NFL season starts.
I'm like the worst cook. It's like a running joke.
I'm an artist.
How would you describe your art?
It's detailed illustration, like pen and ink. I kind of just like hang out, draw a lot. There's like First Fridays in Oakland. There's the Treasure Island Flea Market. So I'm trying to just right now make some products that I can sell at those. Do you think if I cook that with juices, that'll be really good?
Oh yeah. Okay. It's pretty hard to go wrong with meat juice. What's the broccoli for?
I heard of pizza comments, so nothing's ready. Latte basil garlic, all of my favorite. I am a former software engineer who is currently working in getting into the cannabis industry.
Oh. What would you like to do in the cannabis industry?
Oh,
okay.
It's fun to see like working in an industry that's just becoming
Fun facts about 20 Mission include that the building is rumored to be haunted, the Bitcoin-related Money and Tech YouTube channel is shot in the basement, and there is a second 20 Mission location in Medellin, Colombia.
Both 20 Mission and Cobot and other shared work-live spaces like them claim to promote values of community and idea exchange and a healthy dose of work-life balance.
Hello from Bali. Hello to Carsten.
Hey, how are you?
But I heard that Carsten is in town. I simply had to organize this meetup since Carsten is working on the next big thing in the co-working world, and it's called Cobot.
Sure.
So what's Cobot?
Cobot is pretty much the first floating co-working community. So we came up with the idea to combine two passions together, which is like the co-working idea and spending time on the water. And when I was in Thailand a couple of weeks ago on another co-working vacation, another co-working place called Koha, I talked to the owner, who is a sailor as well, and we had a beer, somehow this like usual, sitting in a bar, having a beer, and, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, then we started just developing crazy ideas, and at the end of the evening, a little drunk, to be honest, we had that great idea of moving that brilliant co-working space to the water and sailing the world on a catamaran while working, cooperating, building communities.
So instead of going from one co-working space to another, you would be able to actually have a co-working space moving with us.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. We have our own co-working space with us and are moving around the world.
Visiting some of the best places around.
Not really some.
All of them, within 2 years, right? That's the duration.
So
of the
yeah,
project.
there's no time limit. So the actual plans will take us roughly 2 years to circumvent the world for the first time. But hey, if it takes 3 years, doesn't matter, or 4 or whatever.
Can't hurt, huh? Tell me about the hop-on, hop-off procedure. How can people join?
Yeah, so the idea is that other digital nomads can join the boat, can join the lifestyle. They can come on the boat for a week, for a year, or whatever. So we have minimum stay of a week because it doesn't make sense to have people coming
You're
in
not
and
going to
leaving.
be in the port every day.
Not at all. So not at all. To be on the boat, it's just a link to the terminal. But yeah, we are picking up people from different places in the world, and then they can stay on the boat for a while, working on their own projects, working with us, or working together. So probably we have some amazing new ideas on the boat.
Striking that balance can at times be hard in a building of 20-somethings. Ryan told me they had to cut the parties down at 20 Mission to once a month and move them off-site because it was becoming, quote, too much. In addition to abandoning the idea of buying his own home, Ryan has also unhooked from the idea of becoming an educated person, quote, unquote. He says about school, quote, the concept of doing work solely to be evaluated and discarded instead of being used usefully for something is something I could never motivate myself to do, and I found work much more fulfilling, close quote. He hopes to make a name for himself in the Bitcoin arena, the hot new cryptocurrency that's gaining traction on the internet. With billionaire college dropout role models like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and Mark Zuckerberg, college, with its high tuition and residual backbreaking student loan burden, now seems like a barrier to success rather than a stepping stone towards it. Young folks like Ryan didn't have the benefit of the GI Bill to pay their way through college, as did many returning World War II veterans. The public educational system, which has remained largely unchanged since its inception in the industrial era as a way to prepare workers for factory work, seems woefully unprepared to educate an emerging digital workforce. Many are eschewing education for an entrepreneurial dream of pursuing, or perhaps pursuing, a neo-bohemian life as a barista or Uber driver or Lyft driver, while degree seeking has fallen. Nearly 80% of male millennials, like Ryan, now lack a college degree compared to 70% of boomers at their age. 26% of 25 to 32-year-olds lack a high school diploma compared to 43% of 25 to 32-year-olds in 1965. In addition to unhooking from traditional education, Ryan is also untethered from the remainder of the American dream as well. The remaining markers of adulthood, of getting married, buying a house with a white picket fence, and having 2.5 children and a dog. He has no plans to marry, ever. With the ready availability of a myriad of new and exciting sexual partners via dating apps like Tinder and the forthcoming 3ender to set up threesomes and more sums, not to mention all the meetup groups which focus on polyamory, monogamy seems to make less and less sense when ordering up a new and exciting romantic or sexual partner is as easy as ordering a pizza. As Jamie Varon put it in a recent blog post, when we choose, if we commit, we are still one eye wandering at the options. We want the beautiful cut of filet mignon, but we're too busy eyeing the mediocre buffet because choice. Because choice. Our choices are killing us. We think choice means something. We think opportunity is good. We think the more choices we have, the better. But it makes everything watered down. Never mind actually feeling satisfied. We don't even understand what satisfaction looks like, sounds like, or feels like. We're 1 foot out the door because outside that door is more. We don't see who's right in front of our eyes asking to be loved because no one is asking to be loved. We long for something that we still want to believe exists, yet we are looking for the next thrill, the next jolt of excitement, the next instant gratification. Ryan's Facebook status proclaims that he's in an, quote, open relationship, close quote. His girlfriend's status says the same. When I ask him about it, he says that he's dating her and they're both dating another girl. The end game now isn't to find the one and marry, it's polyamory. A quick search of meetup groups around this topic revealed hundreds for those seeking a polyamorous lifestyle in major cities like Los Angeles and New York, but also, somewhat surprisingly, in smaller suburban venues, including Boulder, Colorado, Albuquerque, and the OC. Several of these boast a membership of over 2,500 people. Ryan explained, I want love. I want growth. I just also want to be free to explore exciting new relationships and where they take me. The popular idea of serial monogamy involves dumping a wife when you get the hots for a younger colleague. I prefer a more flexible framework. I think it makes for better ability to commit. Close quote. Ryan sees his, quote, girlfriend every day. She frequently posts pictures of them together, having drinks, going to a new ramen restaurant in San Francisco, or trying a new cheese plate in the Bay Area, or elsewhere. They look like any other smiling, happy young couple pics. On her Facebook profile, she describes herself as sex positive and frequently advertises her webcam sex show as a way to raise money to pay the rent. Seeing the photos, I asked Ryan why he doesn't commit. They seem to get along fine. His answer was, I can love someone, have children, and fund trusts for grandchildren. These are useful commitments. Committing to only having the one fun, romantic, or sexual relationship at any given time is not useful. There is an increasingly large group of people in San Francisco and New York City that are starting to see polyamory as the thing that happens after you settle down instead of until, close quote. So the untethered life then isn't as much a Hemingway-esque movable feast as it is a life of endless appetizers. It seems the American dream is becoming passé, playing a game they can't win after the economic downturn of December 2007, the Great Recession being the worst since the Great Depression of the 1930s, and its recovery since, or lack thereof, for the majority of middle income or lower Americans. Millennials seem to be rewriting the rules. Why is it that millennials are untethering from the American dream? The next largest generation to come along since the baby boomers, they are set to dominate both the workforce and the consumer market by 2015. Due to their sheer size alone, their values, behaviors, and attitudes will have a major impact on the social landscape. Also, they represent a changing socio-demographic landscape. Millennials are young, tech-savvy, and increasingly non-white. This combination of socio-demographic factors, along with their sheer size, will leave an indelible mark on the American landscape. Let's look at another example of an untethered adult life. St. Bart's, the untethered workforce and micro lives. Unhooking from school, from marriage and home ownership, but also unhooking from the commitment of a lifetime career of 35 years, typical for many baby boomers, and hyper attached to digital communications, has opened the door for millennials to explore many bohemian, quote, micro lives. Take Noel Hancock as an example. After an image of a white, unspoiled, sandy beach with swaying palm trees cropped up on her computer screen, she quit her $95,000 a year writing job in New York City, bought a plane ticket, and left. As she put it, why couldn't I? With no professional obligations or boyfriend, I was completely untethered for the first time in my life. Close quote. She now scoops ice cream for a living, spending her off time swimming, snorkeling, and watching sunsets with friends. She's now pondering a move to Europe. The sharing economy sites like Couchsurfing and Airbnb, TaskRabbit, and HelpX facilitate these micro lives by allowing millennials to digitally coordinate gig work, room, and board. If you haven't seen these sites, I would suggest you take a few moments now or after the lecture and look up TaskRabbit or Airbnb or HelpX and also Couchsurfing and take a look at what they're all about. You may want to discuss them in this week's discussion or reflect on these ideas in your weekly reflection paper. For millennials, growing up in a recession has led them to value experiences over the acquisition of things. Untethered from the burdens and responsibilities of their own homes and families, this generation can up and go on a whim. With nothing to lose and no responsibilities to speak of, many are living a neo-nomadic lifestyle. Slogans like Couchsurfing's, quote, participate in creating a better world, one couch at a time, close quote, to Airbnb's be at home anywhere, reflect this bohemian micro-life aesthetic. It's no wonder that YOLO, you only live once, has become a rallying cry for this generation. And also FOMO, fear of missing out, when people see all the photos on Instagram and other places of where they could be. Driven by such mobile digital technologies, entirely new untethered business models are emerging to meet the new desires of a generation of transitive asset borrowers, increasingly separating themselves from boomer asset owners. The sharing or gig economy, as it's coming to be known, includes companies like Airbnb, car sharing companies like Uber, whose valuations have now topped $13 billion and $17 billion, respectively. We'll talk more about this when we get into untethered work. These are lean companies with no capital ownership that are disrupting more traditional capital-intensive businesses like hotel chains and taxis by simply serving as a connection point between borrower and lender, or renter and rentee. Rooms or cars can be used, borrowed, or shared at the touch of a button without physically hailing a cab or calling a hotel. While sharing assets, many millennials also feel they're building community or making a new friend in the process, key values for this generation. This is a business model which is digital, customizable, and on demand, focused on fulfilling the consumer's immediate needs and their desire for a digital interface. Greenwich Village, New York City. Ray came to New York City from Argentina to pursue his dream of becoming a stage actor on Broadway. Finding the reality of doing so more financially challenging than the dream, he took a job as a genius at the Apple Store in Midtown Manhattan. He rents his room on Airbnb to supplement his income, staying with his boyfriend when guests come to stay. I was surprised when I first swung open the door to, quote, my room. It was tiny, and by tiny, I mean the bed filled the entire room side to side, leaving only a 1 by 4.5 foot space at the end of the bed to stand up and turn around in. The room had the vague smell of sweat, men's cologne, and worn shoes. The bed was jacked up on stilts so shoes could be stored underneath. This left the bed so high, I literally had to jump to get in. I'm 5'9.5", by the way. Any shorter, I'm not so sure I would have made it in without a step stool. Given the tight quarters, I was thankful for the windows, which made the room seem a little less claustrophobic. Through wrought iron Juliet balconies, painted black, I watched everyday life unfold below me on the Avenue of the Americas. Trucks pulled up frequently, and men hustled things through the snowbanks to the stores across the street. People walked by, bundled up with scarves and hunter boots against the snow, some walking sweatered dogs. Ray had left a sweet welcome letter with the instructions on the bed, along with a travel-sized bottle of shampoo and a tiny orange origami flower. Every inch of space was used and neatly arranged. Across from the bed was an Elfa closet system with a small TV and Ray's clothes, arranged by season and color. His winter coats hung on the back of the door. Ray's room was one of 3 in the small apartment. Another Airbnb-er was staying in the room next to mine, which struck me as odd in a funny kind of way. Neither of us lived in the apartment, yet we were both staying there, and none of the normal tenants were around. The girl was nice enough and pretty, though she seemed always preoccupied with something. Pale-skinned and strawberry blonde, she hailed from London and was here for 2 months, she told me, for an internship in museum management at the Guggenheim. The third roommate was never to be seen. The tiny apartment had a windowless living room, which was filled with organizational marvels. Opaque plastic storage boxes filled with neatly folded clothes were piled from floor to ceiling on one side of the room. An Elfa basket system under the breakfast bar on the other wall held all their silverware, glasses, and dishes. Pegs under the kitchen cabinets kept all their oft-used spoons, spatulas, and other kitchen equipment visible and at the ready. Pans hung on hooks to the side of the cabinet. The bathroom was tiny and odd-shaped and had the smallest tub I had ever seen in my life. Only a very small child could stretch out in there. It was more like a half tub. I couldn't believe 3 people shared this tiny space. A comparable place in LA would be a rental for 1. Ray and his 2 roommates are typical New Yorkers, young, professional, renters, and single, a demographic mirrored by nearly 50% of the island's population. In fact, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, this demographic is being echoed across the country as more people than ever are single and many are living alone. The mayor and local developers are trying to address this new untethered adult demographic, since apartments now are most likely to be inhabited by a single adult living alone. Though small, Ray's apartment is absolutely palatial when compared to New York's newest planned rental units. The prefabricated micro apartments, as they're being called, will range in size from a tiny 250 to only 360 square feet, about the size of a typical college dorm room. Further tapping into the untethered demographic, they will come with an online roommate matchmaking program. These tiny units will have a living space, a small kitchenette, and a balcony. Starting to rent around September 2015 in Kips Bay, these, quote, affordable units will rent from $2,000 to $3,000 a month. San Francisco, another city plagued by high rates and an influx of thousands of single tech workers, is considering even smaller units, perhaps as small as 150 square feet, about the size of a walk-in closet. Furniture which responds to this new demographic shift, like Till Conacher's Living Cube, will be no doubt continuing to appear. Less is more. This phrase was first uttered by the famous starchitect, as they're called, Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, a star architect of the German-born Bauhaus movement. Though referring to modern-day design, from buildings to furniture, mid-century modern style has been making a comeback lately in every modern urban city, from New York to Shanghai. Its pared-down, cool aesthetic, devoid of ornamentation, seems to embody the promise of new technology. The bent steel frame and sumptuous black leather cushions of the Barcelona chairs decorate many a Silicon Valley office. Now a design classic that appears frequently in modern apartment interiors, they were originally created for display in the German pavilion of the 1929 Barcelona Olympics. Bauhaus designs epitomize the mid-century modern aesthetic that dominated post-World War II Europe and the United States. The less is more aesthetic could easily be applied to modern millennials. In 2015, a new German-born designer has reimagined the Bauhaus aesthetic in his designs for furniture for the untethered generation. The Living Cube was one of Till Conacher's first designs, created in response to his own challenge of living in a small studio apartment. Part storage unit, part furniture, the Living Cube is described on Till's website as, quote, Our products combine 8 to 12 different pieces of furniture into one very small footprint. An entertainment unit that can fit a 42-inch flat panel screen, shelves suitable for books, records, and or clothing, workspace, wardrobe, closet, shoe rack, drawers, bike and skateboard storage, a mini bar, a queen-size bed-ready loft, and an interior new room for additional storage or workspace utility. Born out of a personal need to address a challenging living situation, lack of storage, limited space, Living Cube is both efficient and sleek, a genuinely inspired marriage of form and function. IKEA is also responding to these changing demographics. Their new, quote, wireless charging collection, close quote, includes a bed loft combo, a desk, 2 bedside tables, and floor, table, and work lamps, all with embedded transmitters, which will wirelessly charge millennials' mobile devices. IKEA, which has traditionally targeted people with thin wallets, has realized their number one value to that customer demographic is 24/7 connectivity, which relies upon power. They identified the pain point, the need to charge the critical mobile devices, allowing this connectivity, and are offering a creative solution. Hotels, too, are reacting to these demographic changes, offering smaller rooms with free Wi-Fi, communal spaces to work, and such tech-intensive amenities as keyless room entry, smartphone apps that let guests adjust the room temperature, or make restaurant reservations without talking to a human. Both furniture manufacturers and hotels are reacting to the desires and habits of the new untethered adult. According to the 2010 U.S. Census, almost half, over 46% of Manhattan households consist of one person, and 76% live either alone or with one other person. This uptick in single adults is not particular to Manhattan, though. In fact, this trend of being untethered as an adult is sweeping the nation as millennials eschew or postpone the American dream of marriage, the house with the white picket fence, 2.5 kids, the dog, and the car, which are the fundamental goals and symbols of the attainment of adulthood for the boomer generation before them. But why are such large and fundamental changes sweeping across the country, ushered in by this generation? Millennials are entering young adulthood in a time of uncertainty and upheaval, and have come of age within a digital, rich environment, all of which have impacted who they are becoming. Many of their families faced economic uncertainty. Their parents lost long-held jobs in the recession, shattering the notion of a job for life. Major banks failed, and many families lost their homes during the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac mortgage crisis. 9/11 happened during their formative young years, shaking their confidence in the police and the government to protect them. Divorce tore apart half their homes. The culmination of all of these events has left millennials with a shaken sense of trust in social institutions. In response, they are unhooking from big businesses, from religion, from political institutions, and from the institution of marriage, having children, and buying a home. Camille, a former student of mine, is a perfect example of this new way of living. Smart, African American with a pretty smile and a sassy attitude, Camille finished her undergraduate degree at USC, then went on to graduate school, where she finished her master's degree in social work. She quickly landed her first job in Los Angeles and got to work on her hours for her counseling license, which she eventually completed. Soon after, she began posting nervous countdown to her social work license exam day notes on Facebook. The day she announced joyfully that she'd passed her social work license exam, she also announced she was pregnant. Soon afterwards, professionally taken happy photos of the proud parents showed up in my Facebook news feed. Camille's face glowed as she showed off her expanding belly, looking lovingly up at her baby daddy, who gazed down proudly at her with a broad smile. She and her boyfriend were not engaged, not married. No plans were announced to get engaged or married, and to this day, even though she's given birth to a healthy and beautiful baby boy, Camille remains single. She's one example I've seen of several former students, educated, urban, and professional in their late 20s who are having kids but not getting married. Unlike the boomer generation before them, this pattern now seems to be the norm rather than the exception for millennials. Let's take a look at this chart, which will show us the percentage of babies born out of wedlock now in our society. In addition to unhooking from marriage, millennials are the largest group to say they're not attached to any particular religious organization, and they are untethering from political parties at 3 times the rate of the silent generation and almost twice that of baby boomers. Let's take a look at this chart from the Pew Research Center. Millennials have grown accustomed to and indeed are beginning to expect life to be untethered, while at the same time being hyper-connected to digital technologies with immediate access to friends, family, work, food, media, and information. Millennials don't see their smartphones and digital connectivity as a tool, but rather as an integral part of their social life and identity. When asked to characterize their generation, boomers cited values like hard work and respect, while the number one most often mentioned characteristic cited by millennials was technology. Although also mentioned as key by Gen Xers, millennials cited it at twice the rate as their 30-something-year-old contemporaries. Millennials are also the largest group of any to use social media. Take a look at this next chart and it will show all internet users in light, but then it will break down by age. The black is age 18 to 29. The green is age 30s onward, and the purple color is age 65 plus. Half of college students and young employees said they'd rather lose their wallet or purse than their smartphone or mobile device. This is how key connectivity has become to this group. Becoming untethered for this generation may be contributing to some serious social and psychological issues that they are grappling with. A recent study found depression and anxiety to be the highest amongst this cohort in 30 years. The traditional social organization of things like church and marriage, things that millennials are unhooking from, provide a sense of comfort and stability and contribute to both the mental and physical health of those who take part in them. Yet this group is shunning both in record numbers. 27% of all households are now comprised of someone living alone, while still others are returning home to live with parents as a result of the inability to find gainful employment. 24/7 connectivity to social networks may be both a cause and an effect of the state of a majority being single. Friends can stand in for family or romantic relationships when those relationships are lacking, while internet dating sites like Tinder give the impression of a myriad of instantly available others. The elderly exhibit lower rates of depression than millennials and are also more likely to be tethered to be married, to have children and grandchildren or even great-grandchildren from whom they derive pleasure and life satisfaction. They're also the group more likely to be church-going than millennials. In fact, the elderly have the lowest rates of depression and anxiety compared to younger generations. One survey finds that the untethered generation of millennials reports the highest rates of depression compared to other cohorts. 19% of millennials have been told they have depression, compared with 14% of Gen Xers, ages about 34 to 47, 12% of baby boomers, ages about 48 to 66, and 11% of those aged 67 and older. More millennials than other generations have also been told they have an anxiety disorder. Another sector impacted by this untethering of millennial young adults is business economic. Millennials are per capita, that means per person, less likely to own assets compared to their boomer counterparts, including houses and cars. Not being owners, they have exuberantly embraced the sharing economy that has emerged, becoming borrowers of other assets, facilitated by smartphones and social networking. Sites like Couchsurfing, where subscribers offer free housing to travelers, as of December 2014 anyway, reported 9 million registered users in 120,000 cities across the world. The average age of a couch surfer is 28. Millennials are the age cohort most likely to say they'd use sites like Couchsurfing, Airbnb, or Uber, peer-to-peer sharing networks they're referred to save money, to offer a service, or to receive a service from a stranger. Let's take a look at this chart about P2P or peer-to-peer engagement. It's not just houses or cars that are being rented. Luxury brands are on loan on sites like Bag, Borrow, or Steal, where one can rent a Louis Vuitton bag, for example, for a week. Dresses can be rented for a night on Rent the Runway from designers ranging from Baglemishka to Tory Burch. And 11 James will even rent you a Rolex. All of these sites make available luxury goods, clothing, and accessories that would often be out of millennials' financial reach. This so-called, quote, sharing economy has also become a way that cash-strapped millennials can eke out a living or supplement low-paying entry-level jobs, whether as a driver for Uber or Lyft, or through renting a room, a couch, or even the floor through Airbnb. Let's talk this week about the impacts that digital technologies have had on your life. Have you used any of these sharing economy services? Have you disengaged like some of these others from this American dream? We've talked a little bit about that, but head on into the discussion. Got some questions for you there, and I look forward to seeing what you have to say this week and talking with you further. Thanks for joining us.